Hi everyone, Ceri the Crafter here today. I thought this morning I might actually do a bit of a product review for you, so put this to one side a second. Now, I'm very often asked when I do TV shows and do display pieces, how do I make these really lightweight pieces that I use for my home decor pieces, sometimes for card fronts, sometimes for shadow boxes. It's no secret that I use Hearty clay for it. I use air-drying clay. I just wanted to do a bit of a product review and tell you why I like it and why it's one of the products I normally turn to when I'm doing this sort of stuff. So let's move that to one side. So the product I'm actually talking about is Hearty Soft. Okay, now this is the white version. It's extremely lightweight. It's a paper bound product, so it's a paper pulp plus other ingredients. But if you, when you're using it, think of it as paper, then you won't go far wrong, because anything you can draw or paint or glue with paper, you can do the same things with this. But as it says, it is air drying. I get mine normally from use.These here in the UK, but I do know there are distributors throughout the world, so wherever is closest to you is probably the best for you to buy from. It does actually come in other colours as well. I don't have all of them with me, but as you can see, I have a selection of them. And the colours are really, really, really intense. So let's take some of these out and give you a bit of an example. So, excuse the rattling of the plastic bags. Once it's opened, you do have to keep it airtight just to make sure it doesn't go out, because, funny, it's air-drying clay. So this is the magenta. Now, normally the clue is this circle of colour up here. That's normally the colour of the clay, not the packaging, okay? Lots of people think it's this colour. No, it's actually this colour. So if I open this one up for you, let's take a piece of this out. It'll be easier here. So as you can see, it's a really, really rich colour, and it's so much closer to that than it ever is with that. Now, I am in electric light here, so it's probably altering it slightly. Now, this is quite a pungent colour. It's really, really intensive, so you don't need a lot. One thing I will warn, however, if you're using white modelling tools or white veiners or white moulds, you might find some of this dye or pigment comes off and transfers to those. It does eventually wash off. I wouldn't worry about that too much. So that's what the magenta looks like. Let's leave that. Actually, let's put a little bit of magenta there and get a little bit of the white out so you can see. So again, excuse the rattling. Now, I normally keep mine in the foil pack, and then from the foil pack I then keep it in a plastic bag or a sandwich bag as well, because the biggest enemy for this is actually drying it out. So again, put that to one side of my bag. Now when you first get it out of the bag, it's going to be reasonably firm, and also, let's take that off there, and also you're going to feel it's a little bit, I don't want to say wet, it's almost damp. If you use it straight away in a mould, it's likely to stick. But if you do this with it and just flatten it out a bit, put it onto a surface, leave it for 5 or 10 minutes, when you go back to it, you'll find it's actually become a little drier to touch, and it's nice and malleable. I have used it straight out of the pack before now. It'll depend on how long you've had the pack and whether the pack has been opened or not. I condition it slightly just by giving it a bit of stretch, and then as you can see, it goes to really, really nice malleable consistency. Now, I'm saying probably 5 to 10 minutes on a surface to dry out. That, of course, will depend on which country you're in, how humid or how dry your country naturally is. So do a little tester. You'll find over time, you'll go, oh, wait, I just need to leave that a few more minutes. And that's basically it. Other than that, it's fabulous stuff. Now, the intensity of the colour, as you can see. Now, the temptation is to put quite a bit of this into this to colour this, but if I take just a little pinch of this, okay, so we can see there, it's about, oops, I lost it, where did it go? There you go. It's so lightweight it runs away from me. As you can see, it's about the size of my little fingernail. So if I take that and I put that in here and work it through, you'll see how intense that colour actually is when it comes out the other end. See, it's quite quite intense, and there's quite a lot of colours in the range too. There's blacks, there's blues, there's yellows, oranges, 2 shades of green. But what I would say is remember your colour theory, remember your colour wheel, because you only really need a couple of colours to make other colours. For example, I don't need blue if I don't need green if I've got blue and yellow. If I've got blue and yellow, I can make green. So I don't need purple, because if I've got red and blue, I can actually make purple. So just be aware that you can do it. So as you saw with that little tiny bit, that's how much that will give that a really good kick into colour. Okay, so really intense colours. So let me just pop that back in. What I usually do once I've finished using it is I pack it down inside, fold the top over so that it's completely sealed, and then I try to put it into a plastic bag or a sandwich bag or a Ziploc bag, whichever you're using, that's not much bigger, and I squeeze the air out because I want to make sure that it's as airtight as I can. And then I usually put all of my air drying clay into an airtight container anyway, just for storage, just over time. Okay, let's see, what else do we need to know about this? Okay, will it stick to itself? Yes, it will. If I have 2 pieces of wet clay, if you push them together, they stick. If you have 1 piece of dry clay and you push it against a piece of wet clay, it might stick. If you've got 2 pieces of dry clay, they won't stick to each other. What would I use instead? I would use any glue that I use on paper to stick paper together with. So anything from PVA to silicone. I do use hot glue occasionally, but I find hot glue sometimes, yes, it sticks perfectly. Over time it might pop off. So just use anything used for paper. Now, how do I colour it? I've shown you here that I can colour it with other colours. I could have used a little bit of acrylic paint in here. Be aware though, because if you add acrylic paint to this, it might change the consistency. It might become a bit stickier. If you use a powdered or a dust or a chalk colour, yes, it will colour it, but it might become a little dry. If that happens, just get a spritz bottle of water. Give it a couple of spritz with water, knead it in, and you should then replace some of the moisture within it. You could use your inks, you could use your distress inks. At the end of the day, if it's actually just white, you could go in and paint it. For example, this is a mixed media canvas I did a while ago, and all of these were just painted with acrylics and metallics. So as you can see, it takes paint really, really easily. Let's put that to one side. Now, if you're someone who moulds or sculpts or does journal covers, or you want lightweight accessories, you can hand sculpt this. You can do what you want with it. You can roll it into any shapes you want. You can play around with it. You can do whatever you want basically with this. It's a clay. What it is not, however, is a clay you put in the oven to harden. This one air dries over time. It's really lightweight. The one thing is you won't have a nice shiny surface as if you were using something like, say, a Medina clay or a Fimo clay that you bake in the oven. But each of them has their own properties you wish to use. Now, for me, a lot of the time I will actually use it in a mould. So this is actually one of my own moulds. This is the Serrated V, and it's from my Creative Cake System range. Now, I have 2 choices. I can dab it with some cornstarch or corn flour. I then brush it in there, give it a bit of a knockout, and I can put my paste in, my clay in, or I could use a little smear of white vegetable fat, just a little bit in there as well. It depends on how your hands are and what you wish to do. So let's use that bit of clay that we actually used, made up. So I'm going to push it into this mold because I want you to see how much detail this clay will maintain and capture. So slide that off the top. Now, obviously you're going to take a little bit extra time than I'm doing, but you know what? I wanted to make sure you saw how well it works in a mould. Now, if it's a good quality silicone mould, you will not have an issue. Open up the sides, let the air breathe through, bang. Look at the amount of detail that has captured. And it's a really lightweight piece. So if you wanted to do this in card making or paper crafting, you could let these dry out, stick them to your card front, and you'd have no issue. So that's the Serrated V, that's the one by me. So another one I like to do, and I want to show you this one because I want to show you how much it could potentially shrink on you, because remember, this is moisture plus paper pulp. So when the moisture dries off, it's going to actually get a bit smaller. So let's make sure I've got the right one. I have. So I'm going to pop this in here. This is a seashell mold. This is actually by KTC Designs as well. You can see that they're my favourite molds. So, oh, that was a good guess, wasn't it? I got that perfect. I couldn't have done that if I'd measured it. So again, come in, flex the mold slightly, really good quality mold, bend it backwards, and there it goes. So that's the amount of detail you get out of it. Now, there is a slight shrinkage, so that's exactly the same shell that's been dried out. So what it means is you do get about a 10 to 12% shrinkage, but that's not a problem. Actually, when it shrinks, it accentuates the detail within the molded piece. What I would say, however, is if you're going to make pieces and stick them to something, I'd let them dry off slightly before you stuck them, because if you stuck that to a piece of, say, a card front, and as it shrunk, it could pull apart and crack, because the moisture evaporating off, it might crack, might dry. But if you let it dry a little bit first, that's fine. If you want to dry it over something that's a curve, you can do that, dry it over there and stick it on. It will stay flexible. So this is a piece I did, probably about 6 months ago. Oh, there you go, that's a good example. See, I obviously must have stuck that down while it was wet and it cracked, so not a problem there. But you can see the amount of detail it captures, and there's still a flex to this. There's still movement. Okay, as I said, this is about 6 months old. I can still move this. Now, because of this is designed so I can take pieces off, which is why you can see it cracking. However, it's equally as good to cut, or I could go in with a craft knife. So whichever way you want to use it, pieces can be used. So put that all to one side. When you're making flowers, and actually that was a very good point, when you do make flowers, over time those flowers will dry and dry and dry. Like this has probably been made for about a year now. There's still a little bit of flex in this, but the very ends of these leaves are probably going to be thoroughly dried out. And if you were to bend them back and forth, they would snap off. Now there isn't a whole lot you can do about that. That is actually just air drying clay. It will dry out fully. So that's probably why. I mean, this has flex in it, but if you flex it too much, you're going to break it. It's a product that's made out of paper after all. What else do you need to know? I think that's about it, really. We've talked about how you can glue it, how you can mold it, how you can manipulate it. I tend to make boxes of things like this, because if I've got some air drying clay left over, I'll make up seashells, I'll make up pieces like this, and I'll let them dry, and then I'll put them in a box and keep them. They will keep for pretty much ever, as long as they're dust-free, damp-free, and then I've got a stockpile of them for later on. So, let's clear the decks just a little bit here, people, just to get the garbage out of the way, or the rubbish. There you go. So, once again, I'm using Hearty White Soft Clay. It does come in lots of different colours as well, so you could buy packs of colour, or you could just invest in the white one itself, and when you've got the white one you can colour it yourself. Once your moulded piece comes out, it's fully dried, you can paint it as I showed you with that seascape. You can use dusts on it, you can airbrush onto it, you can paint with acrylics, you can paint with watercolours, but be aware of watercolours. This is actually a paper base, so it's going to suck that watercolour in immediately. You can obviously do this. This was done with KTC Designs and Chef Nicholas Lodge's Flower Pro system. It's a system of moulding and veining to make commercially viable flowers for either cake or home decor. So that's how I did that one. As you've seen, I've used a couple of moulds. You can roll it out with a rolling pin. You can cut it with cutters. If you're going to cut it with a scissors or a craft knife, let it dry off a little bit first. So hopefully that was okay for you guys. Remember Hearty Soft. I get mine from KTC Designs here in Britain. They're the distributor I get it from. There are other distributors out there. Have some fun, have a play. It is extremely lightweight. I mean, when you reckon, what is that? How heavy is that? I can't remember how heavy that is. because I don't read Chinese or Japanese. But that's quite a weight. I mean, that's 50 grams. Do you know, so I think, no, I'm not going to guess because I get it wrong. I want to say, no, I'm not going to guess, Griffiths, because you, oh, there you go, 200 grams, not looking close enough. 200 grams, that's a big piece for 200 grams, and it goes quite a long way. Okay, so thumbs up from me, guys. Really like this product. I'm going to try and bring you more product reviews in the future. And if you are a business out there and you want me to product review your product, please feel free to contact me. I can't always guarantee it's going to be a favourable one, but then that's the game we all play. Okay, have a good one, guys. Bye-bye now.